when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Hello there, book clubbers. Welcome to a new episode of the Book Club. I've been doing my 3 years, been doing my epic fantasy dances. I got to pull out some sci-fi dances now. We're in a whole new world. Hope you're dancing in your seat. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello. Like, I'm feeling spacey in some good ways. It is, wow, what a shift psychologically, emotionally, generally speakingly for these books. And I'm feeling fresh and excited to dig in with you, Jeff.
Me too. This is going to be fun. We're starting a new book. Always fun to crack open a new book. It is Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Voted on by our patrons. Ooh, there it is. Voted on by our patrons at patreon.com/DLC pod. If you have not started the book and you want to read along with us, hey, a great way to purchase the book on Kindle anyway is using our affiliate link, which will be in the show notes. So, hey, throw us a couple pennies on your purchase. That would be cool. Fun. We're starting this one. Voted on, as I said, by the patrons. Squeaker of a vote, but it did win. And, a lot of the folks in our Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord, described this book as cozy. And I think that is a very appropriate feeling, a description of the feeling that I've been having so far. We're doing 8 chapters of this book, some very brief, some very quick, but I think 25% of the book, according to my Kindle read.
Yeah, 25,
cozy.
26%, and cozy. And just in case you're listening, you're like, whoa, 8 chapters. I felt like it went by in a flash this week.
Yeah.
So it's really quick, especially where we've been feels like really delightful, easy reading. Not in the sense that it is too trite in any way,
right,
but just that it is. It felt like I was flying through interesting characters. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But don't be intimidated by sheer number of
That's
chapters.
right.
We're in a different world now,
and
baby. Whole different galaxy,
agreed,
baby.
Yeah. And if you were, if Malazan Book of the Fallen was a little too intense for you, I feel like this is a great jumping on point. If you want to read with us, read along. I hope folks, if you're new here, welcome. We're going to have some fun talking about the books. I do want to talk about an email that we received. This was sent to dlcfeedback@gmail.com. We welcome any emails you'd like to send our way as well, or even non-spoiler topics for the beginning of the show. Love getting your suggestions for topics to discuss. Anything you'd like to tell us, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. But this one comes from Scott. And this email is dated July 18th, 2022. 2022. Scott says, just listen to the last paid DLC program. That's the other show that Lana and I do together every single week. It is exclusive to patrons at patreon.com/DLCpod. Scott goes on to say, I have to write to recommend Becky Chambers. I'm not certain it's the most impressive prose that you might be looking for. However, anything by her has just been a breath of fresh air for me. There is normally a problem with hard sci-fi where there are interesting concepts contained in the story, but they are explored with a certain sterility instead of through narrative. Absolutely not the case with her, as the ideas are explored through well-developed characters and relationships that you care about. Literally everything I've read by Becky Chambers has been 5 out of 5 stars. The first book in the Wayfarer series is called The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. A motley crew takes on a job to build a wormhole in a new destination. Thanks, Scott. Got that in 2022. Scott also sent an
Crazy.
email yesterday. He said, "Hey, Jeff and Lana, so excited for Becky Chambers on the book club. I had to forward you my email from back in 2022 recommending her books. But sure, fine, you had to wait until Steven Erikson recommended them. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and I'm stoked for an excuse to reread. When I was reading her books, I had to stop myself from binging all of them to savor them instead. Thanks again, Scott." Thank you, Scott. So credit where credit is due. Scott was there first.
Yeah, got his finger on the pulse of some cozy goodness that that binging them, bingeable, I feel like is one of the words that comes to my mind from just the initial chapters we're reading. It feels incredibly easy to just shred through this thing.
Yes, and he did mention back in 2022, he said not the most impressive prose. I definitely love lyrical poetry. I love that kind of really dense, luxuriating in language. Certainly loved Erikson's incredible lyricism and introspection. But I'm also always down for a sort of breezier, more direct. I don't think there's anything pejorative about how I describe Becky Chambers' writing at all. It's very light and fun, and I like hanging out immediately with these people. And she doesn't talk down to the reader, which I think is, for me, is the biggest thing. We're still sort of dropped into this world. Everything, our intelligence is respected. And I think it moves with an alacrity, and there's a sort of just a fun, light air about her prose that I really find refreshing. It's lovely.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much that I want to say that we should swing into a spoilies zone.
All right, let's do it. Spoilers starting now. We're gonna step through the first 8 chapters of the novel. That is the chapters aren't numbered in this book. The first one is called Transit, and the last one we will talk about is called The Job, but they are the first 8 in the book. So let's jump right in. Chapter 1, very short, very brief. We are introduced to Rosemary from her POV. She wakes up in her tiny little pod.
Well, do we want to start with overall sort of?
Oh, sure. I thought you said
that's the part that I wanted to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sorry. It's overall impressions, but with
gotcha.
spoily opinions. So,
gotcha. Go ahead.
One of the things Scott mentioned it in his email that I appreciate is the idea of like hard sci-fi and how clinical it can be. There are some like serious or technical concepts that are explained in this, but they are explained through the character dynamics and like the various personalities on the ship. We've got a ship full of various people, various species that we end up meeting through the course. I'd say that's the primary focus of these first 8 chapters, is really getting to know the people on this crew. But they'll mention things and they'll just kind of fly by it. They'll use little acronyms even sort of interchangeably. And I think this whole opening section and the whole sort of feel of the book, imagining stopping and trying to break down for the reader what all of these concepts are, what each little acronym is, what each piece of whatever ship part or crew function or team ritual, whatever it is that they're doing in a more clinical way, would make this book such a slog. It would be unbearable. But that's not happening at all. It is explained through like character interactions, like, oh yeah, let me show you this thing, whatever it is, but it does feel very natural, feels very smooth. And I'm really appreciating that level of trust on knowing that the reader's just gonna like pick up what you're putting down and moving right along, as though we are familiar with the way that the world is. I really appreciate that.
It's cool. I went back after I finished chapter 8. I went back and reread the first 2 chapters, and it's all there, right? And I kind of gloss over it the first time I'm reading it, but then after having gotten a sort of denser explanation of how the world works, it's all there in the first 2 chapters. And she trusts you to pick it up or let it fly over your head. And Yeah, this is always the trick in genre writing. Sci-fi and fantasy. I remember Erickson mentioning to us, he said, you write a book that's set in Paris, you just say Paris, and everybody goes, oh yeah, I know what that means. I know I have context for all of the things that are connoted when you say Paris. The romance of Paris, the history, it's all built in to that one word because we all live in that world. But when you're inventing worlds, when you're in the far future or you're in a fantasy realm, there's a lot of heavy lifting to sort of understand what a thing is. And, that's what they call world building, right? And I think Ms. Chambers does a great job with the world building, as you said, sort of making it feel conversational and easy breezy, even as we're sort of downloaded all these kind of, sci-fi concepts, which are really some cool stuff that we'll dig into. But I totally agree.
Really cool stuff. Yeah. And one of the other things, I mean, maybe this is because it's one of the things that while I was reading, I was like, oh, I've read a lot of fantasy, but I think I'm like a sci-fi nerd at my heart of hearts, because immediately, in a way that fantasy books, I love them, but I feel like I don't necessarily ingest them in the same way. Maybe it's just because I've been doing a lot of sci-fi media outside of books as well. Been on like a real Star Trek kick for a long time now. Stargate's my favorite show. Like, love it all. There's so many immediate touch points that I feel like there's certain things that are mentioned that it feels the same way as saying Paris to me. It's like, oh yeah, that alien is a paired alien. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like Jadzia Dax. Okay, cool. It's like a Goa'uld. Right. Okay, gotcha. Tok'ra, rather. Like, I'm like, I have other like alien touch points in my brain that it feels so homey to be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It feels like I can rip through it in a way that I love. And in the best way possible, I see, it's got like a Deep Space Nine energy mixed with a Firefly
for sure,
feeling.
The expanse in there too.
Little expanse. There's those just great touch points that it's like, if we're saying any words that you enjoy, get up in this book and join us along the way, because baby, it's really pleasant.
The Goodreads description for this novel starts with it says the word optimistic, an optimistic future, and I love that. I kind of needed that right now. Like, I love dark stuff too, but it's lovely to kind of be in this world where people are kind of in a good mood and happy and like each other, and there's this like geniality that's just in the first 8 chapters that's just kind of delightful. Like I said, it's very cozy because we're hanging out on the ship with a bunch of likable people who, razz each other and have these great built-in relationships. It's nice.
And they don't all like love each other. There's like also diversity present, which also frequently has adversity around that, or friction naturally built in. It's lovely. And I love the stopping point. One of the things that we didn't, I'm sure we'll loop back around at the end of the show, is like, hey, we don't have our community guides, because it feels like we're like forging a path here where at the end of every week, we're going to be like, check us out on Discord to see what chapters we read next time. But I do love that the stopping point in this particular way, it's like, oh, I understand what where the long way kind of is and what the small angry planet kind of is. And it feels like a nice little, we're in it, baby. It feels like I'm living in the title of the book in a way that's a great stop.
Totally.
So, really excited about what we've read so far.
All right, let's jump in and start with chapter 1. Like I said, a real brief chapter. We're just introduced to Rosemary, who wakes up on her cheaply purchased transit pod.
D-pod.
That's right, the D-pod. Which is like the cheapest way to travel and the crappiest way to travel. It's not pleasant. And she wakes up, she remembers 3 things: that she's in space, that she's got a new job, and I think most importantly, that she bribed a government official for a new identity file. So there is hints of Rosemary's history that are a little, maybe not so legal or whatever in this case. Or what what happened.
Instant mystery, though. Instant mystery.
Exactly.
Which I enjoy.
So this is like the cheapest way to travel through deep space, which includes sort of cheap drugs to keep her sedate. And they've worn off a couple of times. And she's waking up, and it's just entirely unpleasant. Waking up early, you know, she's not supposed to wake up until you arrive, but because this is such a, you know, the crappiest way to go, she, you know, kind of comes in and out of consciousness, looks out the window, just sees the blackness of space. She's out there, baby. And dude, what a wild idea of just being completely alone, just jettisoning through space. It's just it's terrifying.
Even before they in the later chapters explain sort of exactly how the D-pod works, the idea that you're just like in a human-sized bullet and they're just like, where you want to go? Bang! is like, space is crazy.
Totally.
That could happen.
Totally. So chapter 2, I mean, chapter 1 is like, you know, about a page and a half maybe. Chapter 2, we're in a completely new POV, and I'm already happy that this novel has multiple POVs. I love multiple POVs. We are now in the POV of Ashby, the captain of the Wayfarer, who we immediately understand, you know, is a lifer. He's been out there. He grew up on this larger ship, and now he's on a smaller ship. He's a tunneler punching holes through space. He knows his stuff, right? We get real sense of his competency. He knows the sounds of his ship. He knows what is something to be alarmed by, and what is something that doesn't, you know, just by the sound of the rocks hitting the exterior, etc.
I love that the whole description. So I daydream about going to space all the time. I always have since I was a kid. Anytime it's talking about things about being in a spaceship, it's like a beautiful wash of delightful imagining over my mind. But the whole description of like the love that you can feel for something where it's like, space in the spaceship, it's scary. But, you know, especially in the future where space travel is so known, it is like such a part of just what life is. And the description of love being like, people think, you know, space is the void and it's quiet out there, but it is all of the sounds of your ship, all of the little dust and the rocks hitting your hull, and knowing that the absence of noise can often be the part that's dangerous. It's such a lovely description of somebody who's used to this and also loves what they're doing. Really appreciated that initial look into Ashby's mind.
Totally. Corbin walks in, Artis Corbin. We are introduced to Corbin, who is described as being two things: an algaeist and an asshole, which is fun. So we immediately have this, this really wonderful contrast between our, you know, the competency. It continues. Like, he's an excellent algaeist, and we learn that algae is like the fuel, and they have huge vats of algae. They got to keep it. You know, there's a lot of skill in maintaining the algae, and not a lot of algeists want to be out here on this kind of vessel doing this kind of job. So they're kind of lucky to have this guy, but he's kind of a jerk, kind of uptight. And he comes in ranting about the new hire because he's seen the CV, the resume for Rosemary, and is none too happy that they've got this kind of inexperienced young woman joining the team.
And even so, I love the scene. I pulled part of the scene as one of my favorite quotes, very resonant as a game developer. I've met Corbin before.
Yeah, I think we've all met.
I've worked with Corbin. We've worked with Corbin. But even through the scene and his like sort of frustration with this young hire with very little experience, I think this is where you already start getting the idea that the Wayfarer is not like it's not the flagship of the fleet.
Yeah.
And they've hired this new hire because they need a clerk. They need somebody who's doing sort of admin for this ship, because it's not like they're necessarily in a bad way. They're not like, oh, we're in debt and we're trying to get out of it. They're just kind of like not the perfect, most neatest things, which is sort of all the more surprising that Corbin would work on this ship. But the way Corbin's described is like really liking algae more than he enjoys hanging out with any person. It's sort of the ideal social scenario for him to sort of be
tend
away.
The algae. Yeah. This is my favorite kind of sci-fi. I definitely love Star Trek and have, great affection, especially for Next Generation era Star Trek crew. But I've always gravitated more to that like lived in dirty sci-fi, I've always loved, the fact that the Millennium Falcon breaks down all the time and, that felt so much more grounded in a kind of, lived in reality. And, I love Firefly and being in this world on the Wayfarer and the fact that it's constantly described as being like cobbled together from scrap parts and that they had to makeshift this and makeshift that. And they're scraping for money to upgrade the ship to get to the next place to do a little bit better job. Like all of that is so in my wheelhouse for the kinds of sci-fi stories I most gravitate to and most enjoy. So yeah, loving that.
Yeah. But this conversation between Ashby and Corbin, Corbin's really frustrated, but then just are talking through like why they need a clerk, why is this important, how they think even though she's fresh, people need a first job. It sort of pointed out that working on a ship like theirs that is boring wormholes through space is like a pretty like high stakes first job. He's like she's just doing admin, it's going to be fine, and then it immediately turns into. Actually, you're so mad about that. She gets here so soon. And I think the rest of us actually have meetings. We're like so busy. And now that you're a big whiner about it, I'm playing big boss about it. And you have to introduce her to the ship and give her the tour. It's such like a nice little, it shows their relationship, but it also shows like he's the captain, is the leadership dynamic. You gotta do this. This is your job. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. So great.
Yeah,
love it.
So great. A couple other details I want to pull out of this chapter. We get some intimation that being a certified clerk is kind of a big deal, and that the sort of larger government entity thinks that having a certified clerk on your ship like kind of is a big plus. It could be a boon, to getting other kinds of jobs. So I think that was interesting.
Yeah.
Also, there's
I like that it's pointed out like it shows that you care about like the law,
right,
kind of is what it sounds like. It seems like you care about the global collective, whatever they call it. It's not global, obviously. Galactic.
It's the
collective.
Galactic Commons,
the
right?
GC Commons. It shows that you care about that thing, which in the void of space, I can imagine there's a lot of people who are like, you can't stop me. It's a void of going through wherever, I like that it's like opting into law.
Yeah. And Ashby is, he's the kind of captain where he's like super good at being a captain, but hates paperwork, and he's like, I got somebody to do all that paperwork so it's not late all the time, because I'm always putting it off. Again, lovely little character details. Also, we have this moment where Corbin like calls Syzyx a lizard, which is like this pejorative kind of racist term, and is, smacked down by Ashby. So you get the sort of the moral order of this world a bit, and the fact that Ashby is like a decent human who cares about his crew. Like all of that is just so elegantly conveyed, I thought. And he's mad, Corbin's mad because Syzyx stole his dent bots, which I can only imagine are like little robot toothbrushes, I guess, just a little lovely little sci-fi details I thought were cool. All right. So chapter 3, back to Rosemary. She wakes up in her D-pod. And we get a little hints of backstory on her. She used to live on Mars, which evidently is fully colonized. And we get this whole interesting idea about this sort of wrist implant that is her ID that she had to pay for a replacement one. And she's worried that it's gonna, it's not gonna be good because she kind of did black market, ID replacement.
And because, whenever you get those IDs in the first place, they're so young. She's like a freshly healed scar that I feel like anybody being like, in twisting, that's pretty conveniently located cut you got
Yeah.
there. Hers is like covered up, but it is, I mean, something that's deeply implanted under your skin. I feel like that scar would be pretty present, especially if you got it done at bootleg ID replacement shop.
Right. Yeah. And then she meets the ship AI, because she's now sort of arrived on the Wayfarer. Ship AI is called Lovelace, or Lovey for short. And this whole interaction with the AI is I thought very fun. Where she's sort of not used to interacting with really polite, accommodating AI, and the AI is just like, I gotta search you for blacklisted bugs, and oops, oh no, there is some. Gosh, I'm really so sorry. I need to flash you to decontaminate you.
I love that you can picture her between this pod she just flew in with, in like a hatch tunnel connecting her to the ship's port. And the way that it seems like it's described, she's standing there talking with the AI, and the AI is like, "Oh my gosh, how are you? How was your thing? That's so crazy." And then the AI is like, "Sorry that I'm talking so long. I'm like searching you for these things." And she's like, "Well, it's been like the span of one sentence. So it hasn't been that long
for me."
But you're sort of registering like, okay, in her AI mind, it's probably an infinite amount of time because of how quickly she can think. But you get the detail about the technology of how the AI works. You get the fact that it's this personality, and then you get the idea that it can like scan you and like has all the functions that you would expect sort of a ship's computer type character to have.
Yeah. So this flash is nauseating. It really is this kind of intense thing, and Lovelace is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to do that to you, but we have somebody on the ship who is super sensitive to certain contaminants, and so we got to make sure that everything's cool."
The description of it, like continuing, like hurting her teeth afterwards, I felt like I could feel that in my face. That is so bothersome to me, to think that your body got flashed such that your teeth are sore now.
Yeah, totally cool.
Brutal.
So then Corbin comes in, kind of grumbling, unhappy about having to be the welcome party, and gives her a tour of the Wayfarer, which kind of gives us this sense of this rickety bucket that's cobbled together from spare parts from everything else, which, like I said, I absolutely adore that notion and that image that is conjured in my head.
But I also love that he's giving her a tour of the Wayfarer, but it's like the tour at the way if the safety demonstration on an airplane were a tour of the airplane.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so funny.
He's like, this is where like the emergency master, this is like where the lifeboat, like all the different.
If this
pieces
fails, go over here. If there's an explosion, go over there. He's that guy.
Yeah, which, don't get me wrong, is important, but I wouldn't necessarily call it like the tour of the
welcoming
place. Which I love that as like a character trait of like what he thinks is important about the ship for somebody to know. And then pretty quickly they run into other crew members along the way who eventually take over.
What also accentuates his feeling that she's going to screw everything up, and it's like, when inevitably you cause problems, like, here's the reason. So then we're as we're kind of walking through the different areas of the ship, we meet Kizzy and Jenk, which is just a delightful scene. And what wacky characters! Jenk is this like tiny person that's literally on Kizzy's shoulders as they're working. And man, this feels so Guardians of the Galaxy, or it just wonderfully evocative of this crew that you just immediately fall in love with, and their dynamic is great. And Kizzy is this kind of bubbly, fun personality, and they're working away, with stuff falling and breaking, and this kind of chaotic but very positive work environment. I adored all of it.
There's like a flip that comes later, but there is a sort of almost airheadedness as it's portrayed by Kizzy. Not airheaded, but like a absent-mindedly doing things, where it's like, yeah, this is the thing, and not like really registering how much sort of destruction or mess is captured along the way. There's like a thoughtlessness, maybe I'm not coming up with the right word, haphazard way of working that is to her, but she's like so like bubbly and immediately like, oh my gosh, hi, which is like a way better, you know, intro experience for somebody versus Corbin's pretty sterile personality. And then Cenk being like a little jacked dude. Like he's like really muscular, like thick guy, worked on that physique on the ship, but little and up on the shoulders. Very, very sweet intro. And they've got like, they're fixing something in the wall and they've like pulled the whole wall apart and pulled out all these various tubes and things, which of course is giving Corbin like the anxiety feels of like, what are you doing and why are you doing it this way?
Did you play the Sony Santa Monica God of War reboot games? Did you play God of War 2018, I want to say, or
oh, like, okay. I was like the reboot game, like
the new God
like
of
the
Wars.
ones with Chris Judge. Yeah.
You remember the two little dudes that are working the forge?
Yeah, Sindri and whatever his other guy's name is.
That's what I have in my head for Cenk. That's totally what I.
Yes, okay.
I don't know, you probably don't get this reference, but Puck from Alpha Flight from Marvel Comics. That's another like. That's my mental image.
Touchstone. Yeah.
Anyway, love these characters immediately. Then we meet Syzyx, who also comes in to lead Rosemary to her room, and Syzyx. Completely different species, you know, Cenk and even Cenk with all these, like they call them gene tweaks, I think they call them, where he's clearly been, you know, kind of modified in some interesting ways. Still human, but now we meet a true, you know, different species for the first time. And this is Syzyx, the aforementioned lizard, although that's a naughty term. But she, you know, she's literally, you know, has scales and claws.
A reptilian.
Yeah.
She's cold-blooded.
Yeah.
So like part of the immediate friction there is because she is reptilian, she needs it to be hot or she will stop moving. Yeah. And so Corbin is like down with the algae, cares a lot about temperatures and making sure things are just so, and sort of running around there by himself that just the base temperature of the ship is like really too hot for him. And so there's that feeling of being too hot and just being very angry. I get that. I'm a sweaty lady. That's my default state is
but
sweaty.
It already puts those two at odds like immediately. Like they just literally don't want to be in the same temperature as each other.
Yeah. So Corbin very happily hands the tour off to Syzyx, who is like way more personable and is like, so what have you seen on the tour? The emergency hatches? That's what I thought. Have you seen your room? Great. I will give you the real tour
so
now.
Good.
Very sort of like sisterly kind of, I know what you need. Welcome to the ship. We're going to give you a real welcome here.
The other thing that I love about the introduction to Syzyx is that this species, which doesn't immediately seem what you would expect from a reptilian, cold-blooded, you know, take, is that there's
cold-blooded, warm-hearted.
Yes, that's right. Their species has this like affectionate, just baseline affectionate kind of touchy-feely thing, which by the way, I would love. That would be my favorite. I would only want to hang out with that species.
Yes.
Just give me hugs constantly. Put your head on my shoulder. That's my love language, baby. But it's just a wonderful, I love that. I've never kind of seen that as a, you know, fantasy or sci-fi species trait, is this that we're just a little too touchy-feely. We're just a little more loving than is usually appropriate. You know, it's great. So cool.
It made me want to look up, I mean, if we at some point, maybe, who knows, get a chance to talk to Becky. I'm like, what's the inspo? I want to know, like, what is this like like pulled from particular species of actual lizards that have this behavior? Because I don't think of lizards in general. Right. Again, I feel like bad saying the word lizard. Reptiles. Is that the right? Yeah, what's the right word? What's the proper word? The reptiles, like, are there actual reptiles that have like behaviors like that they could sense like anxieties and come over and snuggle each other? Because I'm like, I want to know about them. It's very lovely details. in there. And I didn't think about it as like, oh, I wouldn't expect the reptilian species to have that be their core trait, but that is a really great thing to sort of point out. That's definitely sort of a subversion of what I'd expect from a reptilian species.
I always appreciate that when it's like not what exactly what you would expect, or the opposite of what you would expect. It's always great. All right, so we're back to Ashby's point of view for the next chapter. And this is the meeting that he said he would have to have at the same time that Rosemary was supposed to arrive, which is why Corbin had to greet her at the door. Anyway, so this is he's checking in with the transit board, and there's somebody named Yoshi from the transit board that he has to sort of interface with. And in this conversation, Yoshi sort of dangles this notion of a larger job, some sort of bigger, more ambitious job that the Wayfarer might want to take, or that Ashby might want to take. And he's kind of being cagey about it, kind of being vague about it. And he just basically says, hey, watch the news, check out the news in the next couple of days, because I can't tell you more yet, but this might be up your alley.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting is I couldn't tell if he was dangling a job or if he was just like, yeah, keep your eye on the news. Who knows what it means? And I mean, with the mystery with Rosemary, I was immediately like,
oh, interesting.
Does he know who their clerk is? And is he's going to like break her cover immediately?
Right.
And then, I think we get like a kind of a fake out in the next couple chapters because Ashby was already checking the news all the time, but maybe different news. So I thought it ended up being like, oh, it could be any of these three things that for some reason he knows about right after we sort of had this interaction between him and Ashby.
So then we're back with Rosemary for the next chapter, and Syzyx takes her on this, the actual tour, takes her to the fishbowl, and we're introduced to this part of the ship called the fishbowl, which sounds awesome. This kind of domed, almost like a greenhouse in the middle of the ship that has this amazing view of space and is kind of like a hangout gathering area.
Like the mess hall kind of situation. But the thing I love, I mean, immediately from the algae to this room being filled with plants, it is something that you can't tell if I think it's just this crew that most spaceships still wouldn't have a big green room on there to sort of give people that sense of like life and in the void of space. I imagine like still when time travel, when space travel is so normalized, it is just the galaxy you're living in. Having a room full of plants still being such like a unique and thrilling thing for people on the ship, I think is very special.
Yeah, and there's lots of it's peppered in lots of world building stuff about there's people like I think Ashby who have only ever lived on spaceships, right? That never, and then there's other people called grounders that are like people that lived on a planet or were born on a planet, and there's a lot of discussions here about the 10-day, which is I think the word for week, right? Is a week is 10 days, so they call it 10-day. And then this light cycles. There's this discussion of how the lights in the ship raise and dim over time to sort of give you a sense of circadian rhythm on the ship to
because there's also like planetary time, whatever that is, and then I forget and standard
solar,
time. I forget what the two. Yes. Solar is like the Earth time days, and standard is how everybody's kind of trying to measure days across all of the space they're in. Yeah, there's lots of cool details for how the things work societally across such vast distances.
It's neat, and it all seems very well thought out and consistent, and you sort of drawn into it. And again, not overwhelmed by there's some sci-fi books where it's just like I've just read 3 pages of absolute gobbledygook. It's like because we're so far away from it, but this feels so accessible. So it feels very effortless on Chambers' part to kind of bring you into all of these terms and terminologies. It's cool.
And there is I think even within this section the idea of some kind of holodeck-ish space that they have, where it's like, oh yeah, it's recommended that everybody spend at least some amount of time, either every day or every work week, in this space that has like some kind of simulations that you can experience, but it helps to have a real place that is really filled with real plants and things to help sort of mentally ground yourself.
So then we're introduced to another new crew member, Dr. Chef, who
cute
got
name.
a great name, because the actual name is unpronounceable to human vocal cords. And Dr. Chef speaks through a talk box because or could have spoken through a talk box, but has like trained multiple vocal cords that sound almost like a chorus talking, like multiple voices happening. It is a species that transitions between genders over their lifespan. I imagine like a grub, almost like a worm man with, he's got multiple sets of limbs, and each of them are identical and can be used as hands or feet as needed. It's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that he's like, I'm Dr. Chef. I am named what I do, or I am what I do, or whatever he says. But the idea of he really felt it was more important and more distinct to him to learn the language rather than just have it spit through some translator talk box thing. Because how else can you like really feel it, like some of the nuance of a culture without learning the language, which I thought was sort of a sweet outlook from him. But yeah, he's got the 4 vocal cords that he had to train to work together so that they're functioning at the same time, which is not normal for his language. And even the mannerisms that he has for what what laughing sounds like versus what a smile is based upon like how many puffs of the cheeks happens after he says a phrase. There's like sweet, very distinct kind of mannerisms that it's not like everything is like super anthropomorphic and just everybody's a humanish kind of person. It really does feel like we have very distinct species on the ship, and the way that they express and emote and function, how their bodies work. It describes everybody has like different chairs that they didn't have different chairs for the longest time for all the different butts to fit in. And it's great. Lots of little character-y details on the ship. And
again, it's like, it's this cozy, like these people you want to hang out with. Dr. Chef loves herbs and really enjoys his job and wants to cook and make the nice meals for everybody and makes everybody nice. And we get, we learn pretty right around here about the Cianot, the pair, the Ohan, the Cianot pair, and how Dr. Chef wants to, leaves a place for the Cianot pair at every meal, and just in case it wants to, they want to come and sit there. It's just lovely people. You just immediately want to just be around these folks, and it's like, I like being in this world right away.
Yes, yeah.
So there's this discussion of what to eat, and they eat bugs, and it's like the notion of eating a cow is just disgusting to most of them.
I love the dinner scene. It was a lot of sort of it is exposition about the world framed through the character interactions. And when we first met Kizzy and Jenks earlier, that's setting up dinners in 30 minutes, and so you get everybody together at this table. And what comes out is Rosemary. They immediately identify her as somebody who comes from money.
Yeah.
Because she's never even had one of these Red Coast bugs that are like, everybody be eating bugs because they are abundant. They have like tons of protein. They taste pretty great. And they're like everywhere. And the idea of her like having eaten beef.
Yeah.
They're disgusted by. And also the only people eating beef are like not leaving the planet, and they are made of the money. They have this stuff to be able to interact with it. Then they start talking about, I had some experiences on Mars. I only went there once to see sort of lanterns be flown. That was like some beautiful site where they released as the memory of the last settlers. It's Remembrance Day, the last people leaving Earth.
Yeah.
So Earth is like
Long gone.
destroyed, long gone from human greed, indulgence, and warmongering. And her being like, yeah, I was there that day. And Rosemary is internally revealing a bunch of details. Her father is a major donor to huge events. She's like got some rich and very well-known family that people would probably have heard about if it were able to be revealed. So Rosemary, because of her panic of lying about her life or her internal anxieties of trying to stick to her story of what her new identity is, we're learning things about her that are true, kind of true, and things that are true, but she's not telling anybody that part.
I love that the way that was laid out, where she's
way.
in the conversation and she answers these questions and then is like, true, kind of true, lie. You know, like I thought that was really fun, a fun little sequence. It was great.
But we still don't know why she's run away, why she wouldn't want people to know about her family. Like it is like a nice little mystery thread that is we get to pick at a few times over the course of the chapters.
Does seem like her relationship with her family is not a good one, right? She's not has much contact with her father, at least that's explicit. And then we, she doesn't know how to eat the bug. All that was very fun. We learn about the Cianat pair, and we get some real world building stuff about that species. And they have this thing called the Whisperer virus, nanovirus, that only infects their species. It hasn't leapt to any other species, so they feel very privileged and special about having it. And this virus actually changes their brain chemistry to the point where they're able to conceptualize this subspace, this sort of quantum space that wormholes occupy in a way that even complex AI can't quite fathom. So they're very well sought after for their sort of functional role on a ship that wants to move through subspace, but they're also strange and kind of set apart from everybody else and don't want to interact with people. And their species is sort of, standoffish and protective and isolationist in the sense that they feel like this nanovirus is only theirs and must be protected.
Yeah, the Whisperer. Yeah.
The very cool stuff, I thought.
Very cool stuff. And in particular, it is folks who, like, anybody can go through the wormholes once they're established, but to be a ship like theirs that is boring the wormhole, and they go into details, I forget if it's around the dinner table or like the next day, about the different types of wormholes you can pierce and why you can have like short hops or whatever, but like the big thing that you would need that Cianat pair for is piercing a blind punch through space, and where you're actually sort of in subspace for a distinct amount of time, quote unquote time, and then figuring out where you're going to come out on the other side is where you really need them for, because they're the only ones who can really experience it, conceptualize it, and not be set mentally adrift in the significant void of subspace. You're muted.
Sorry, I was saying so cool, such a neat idea. I really I thought that was neat.
I agree.
We find out here that Kizzy tried a Cianat paste tube, which is the only thing that the Cianats eat. And she's like, it was terrible. There's no flavor.
I love that she's like, I put it on bread and it was a waste of good bread.
Yeah, very funny. Again, just sort of like just wonderful hangs. It's like these first, I would say 7 or 8 chapters here are like vibe chapters, right? We're just vibing with the group. And I really was vibing with the group. I really dug it. I had no idea what this book is about yet, really. Just vibing, just hangs, just cool hangs.
And I do think it is sort of like a nice luxuriation in meeting the characters and seeing them sort of like at their best and calmest, because it does seem like we are going to get into a space where things might not be the
Yeah.
calmest. And so being able to sort of see what the natural routine is before we get thrust into the chaos is it feels cozy.
cozy.
That's a good
Yeah,
word.
it's like the beginning of Alien, before the alien pops out of the chest and everybody's hanging blue collar, just worker truckers. Except that there's like a darkness and kind of antagonism at the beginning of Alien, where this is just people who kind of like each other and like hanging out and like their jobs and are, there's no, it is cozy. It does feel very pleasant to be around these folks, which is cool. All right. So then in the middle of this chapter, I thought very cool. We get a POV change over to Ashby without a chapter break. Again, love that. Very Malazan.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this wonderful moment where he and Sizzix are kind of talking about Rosemary and their first takes on, how is she? And as this reptilian species, Sizzix is like, there's a word in my language that's not really translatable. And it kind of means egg soft, like she's soft.
Yeah.
She's like a newborn egg that was just hatched. But like, there's an implication that at someday that will be toughened up. It's a lovely, I love that. Like, there's nothing real word in your language to describe this, but for us, it's like a soft egg.
I love that, especially because Ashby offers inexperienced, which just has, like, if anything, a potential negative lilt. And she's like, no, this is not, it's that, but it's not a negative lilt. It's like seeing potential, but recognizing that they're sort of vulnerable right now. I really thought that was so cool as well. And this, I think, is also where it's sort of revealed that, their relationship is closer. She can sort of see in him things that like little spikes of anxiety that he's not expressing. And because her characters seems to be incredibly empathetic, you get like sort of Sizzix internalizing, like, this is where I would normally like hug somebody for like many, many, many minutes to just be like, I'm here for you, and just sort of showing your support physically by holding on to them and registering that that's a feeling that she's had to suppress, knowing that most races save that for their most loved ones.
Yeah. It's great. So Ashby is browsing these sort of like upper level gigs, these jobs that are kind of beyond the capabilities of the Wayfarer. And she's like, why are you even doing that, bro? We can't do any of those. He's like, eh. And we get the insight here that Ashby sends money to his nephew and his sister. And there's this like aspirational, desire to make more money, not necessarily for himself, but for this extended family that he has affection for. Lovely stuff. All right. Next chapter is from Cenk's point of view. And there's this fun interaction where Kizzy is listening to her thump box and jamming out to a song and just singing along and having the great old time. The socks match my hat. The socks match my hat. Just very funny. And Cenk is like, do you know what that song actually is? She's like, yeah, it's about socks matching your hat. He's like, no. It's not in English. That's the language that's saying, it's talking about this horrible thing. And she's like, I like that even better.
Like a revolution. I think I pulled that as like one of my favorite
so good
for this. It's really, I mean, that of like listening to another language and hearing like the patterns of your own language on it and being like, yeah. I get it. For me, I'm getting what I need from this. And singing along in the only way I know how is very, very
fun. And then she's like, yeah, it really means that? Then I like the song even better. It's super punk rock. Yeah, let's do it. So good. Yeah. Very funny. And we find, Cenk sees that she's got these very expensive fix bots that she shouldn't have, and she's not even using. They're kind of buried under a pile of garbage. But I feel like that's a foreshadowing to something that we're going to come back to later.
It is. And this is the moment that I like as a pair to the fact that they're kind of painting her. I mean, even within the scene, they're painting her as sort of like blah, blah, blah.
Flighty.
Like a little bit head in the clouds type person. But she's thinking so much ahead. She has these bots. She's had them for however long. And what they are is they'd be she's in there even spending hours fixing a tiny thing that these bots could fix in like moments. It's like, why don't you just use these? And her thinking far enough ahead as like a competent technician, mechanic of this ship, being like, well, as long as I can fix something myself, I will, because there could be something that down the line, one of you is not available to help me fix that needs to be fixed. And that is when I will use them. She's like, she's got a backup plan. She's thinking about the way that this ship needs to run and to get through what is, I mean, the subspace stuff is a crazy thing where people could clearly lose themselves, lose consciousness, lose their sense of time and reality and whatever. And the fact that she's thinking about how to keep this ship in one piece, even in the worst circumstances, it just shows that, you know, she is more than she's being presented as to us now.
So then we have Jenk moving on to, he says this line that I wrote down because I thought it was very funny. He's like, you want to smash before bed? And I was like, whoa, that's.
I also thought that. But okay, so here's the question. Did he say that to be like, because they actually have some kind of relationship like that? Or did he say that because she's like, she's not listening, so I'm just saying something?
No, we find out later that smashing is not what you and I think it is. We find out later that it means like kind of getting drunk or like, because they party later.
Yeah.
And it's oh, they did smash. And it's like, oh, okay, it's.
Right.
But
I did not
like,
put that together.
Wow,
I was like, yo, okay. Is that kind of like, all right?
Because we immediately.
But then it like immediately goes into the next scene that I was like, Jake, my man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The next moment he goes in and talks to Lovelace, the AI, and it's clear that they have a more than professional relationship. He and the AI, and she, you know, the AI seems to really be in love with him and is asking him like, you know, oh, do you find Rosemary attractive? What kind of women do you find attractive? What makes a woman attractive? What if I had a body? What would you want my body to look like?
Could you describe to me every woman you've ever thought was attractive? Just compiling a list.
Yeah.
And then Jake being like, if you ever had a body, then it should be whatever you want your body to be. I'll like whatever your body is. So they clearly have like a pretty deep relationship, but then also through the dynamic of this kind of like a little bit like weirdly like 2% like it's not sexy talk, but they clearly are into each other. Jen is like stroking cables and like imagining what her body could be.
Have I thought about you with the body? Oh, all the time. Yes, all the time.
Every day of my life. But we learn that, you know, there is some movement that is like a lot of movements by people who are not actually affected by it, aka humans fighting for AI as a sentient right, are trying to say that they should all have bodies, but it's like, but not all of us want bodies. Here's all the things that I couldn't do if I had a body. There are things that I could do if I did. I could go to a planet. I could see the ship from the outside. I could see the sky from the ground. Like I could
hang out at breakfast with you guys. Yeah.
Exactly. There's like so many different things that we learn about. And then we also learn about sort of like well-intentioned organizations that are not doing it quite right, which I think is also like a putting it of like them fighting for AI's rights. I'm like, I can extrapolate that into what's the reverse of extrapolation? I can apply that to my current existence and see that happening all the time.
It's very funny. She's like, well, but I wouldn't be able to be in multiple places at once, and I wouldn't be able to like instantly, interface with all the things. It's very cool. Like the pros and cons of having a body. Very cool. So that.
And even he walks in and she's like, well, how was your day? He's like, you know how my day was. You can see everything all the time.
Yeah. It's great. So then we have, I think this is the first of the kind of format departures that happen a number of times in these chapters, which I thought was interesting, where we're kind of moved over into getting a direct news report, kind of with a different font, and the book shifts into this kind of other place. I thought it was interesting. So we're going to get the evening news basically kind of directly delivered to us. We find out about, the 4-year anniversary of this Oxomoco disaster. There's an outbreak of some virulent disease happening, the Marabunta disease. There's all these other battles going on over worlds. And I'm reading this going, okay, what's the news that Ashby is supposed to pay attention to that's supposed to be so cool here? I don't see anything. Like, what is it? I thought that was cool.
And I was looking for is Rosemary in here? Is it like a guy mentioned that's like the billionaire's daughter goes missing or like whatever?
Nothing. It just kind of I just kind of felt like it was just sort of flavor text for the world,
It's gonna be one of those things that later there's gonna be like, the disease. We're gonna be like, remember the news article? But I think that it does feel like populating the galaxy with life.
Definitely. So then we have the next morning at breakfast. And this is where we get full-on description of what they do for a living, right? We just get a description of a punch, what that is, as you kind of already gone over it, this blind punch versus cages where, you can do it in two ways. You can have this sort of established end point where this cage has been set up that allows, ships to move through a wormhole and land at the specific point. And if there's already a cage set up, oh, great, where you're going to come out, and you can just sort of, keep going, daisy chaining those points to each other. But oftentimes there's not already. You're trying to establish a new endpoint, so you're kind of going out into blind subspace, and that's, as you said, where these guys operate and what they need a cyanide pair for. And then we get this kind of offhand reference to this thing called the Kajmet Expanse, which is like when they were first doing jumps, it just destroyed everything and the planets are torn in half and everything's a mess, which is cool. And we find out about pinhole jumps and tug jumps. And it's just really cool, well thought out sci-fi. Love it.
Yes. Yeah. That's where we learn that's how the D-pods work, is they do pinhole jumps that are if wormhole, you take a piece of paper and you fold it together so those two ends go together, and that's how you're traveling across such a great distance in such a short amount of time. The pinhole jumps is not taking a full piece of cloth and folding it in half, but little ripples along the way, little tiny piercing, like a needle through a piece of cloth. And the visual is so clear.
Yeah.
The metaphor was like razor sharp for what that looks like and how that ship would be traveling fast, slow, all the way to its destination. Very cool.
I also love whenever there's, this sort of complicated sci-fi concept, but then there's multiple ways to do that. That just feels very authentic to how things would really be. It's like there's not just a way, even if that way is really cool and interesting, but in a well thought out world, it's like, but there's also these other ways to go about it. I think that's so cool. Go ahead.
And then the big takeaway from the explanation of all the pieces is that because they have the right people equipped on this ship, even though it's kind of like the rickety strapped together
motley crew,
motley crew, the ship itself looks like patchwork, and they're like scrounging things up, scavenging to make their thing better. They have the right people for the job that allows them to do blind punches where other ships could not. They're also a small enough ship that a huge cargo freighter couldn't do it because it would rip too big of a hole in space. And so knowing that they are uniquely positioned to do this work and why they have achieved the success that they even have so far, allowed them to have this as a career and stay somewhat afloat, is clear.
I did though, as well thought out as all this is, and how much I admire the underlying sci-fi concepts. There was a line here that I pulled out, whether the sort of the justification for needing a Cianat pair was, why can't AI just do this stuff? Well, if we don't understand it, then we can't program an AI to do stuff we can't understand. And I was like, that's very funny because I think this book came out in 2014, right? Today,
really? Yeah. Wow.
Today, AI does a lot of stuff that we don't understand how it got to that point,
But But that's not true. It's still accurate. AI does exactly what we think it's
I don't know.
do.
There's a lot of,
and only because we programmed it to do that thing. There's a lot of like, we don't have to get into this debate, but that's why it's like AI still works that way. We programmed it to do the next most likely thing, and the next most likely thing might surprise you, but it's not operating in a way that we didn't intend it to.
I don't think that's accurate. I think there's a lot of,
there's
a lot of black box. I mean, specifically with like, chess AI and Go AI, where it's literally just learning by playing against itself just an absurd number of times. And they get to strategies that no human has ever employed. So they're not learning from anything that we've actually done. They're literally coming up with novel solutions that, and we don't know how it got to that place. We literally don't know. It's a black box inside of which we have no idea. The iterations happen so many times, it's incomprehensible, and it's impossible for us to even penetrate that black box to understand it. So,
but the original programming of saying you're going to play this game against yourself, it's like, would 1 billion monkeys write the works of Shakespeare by random chance? It is still that same premise where like you could go back and say, we don't know exactly what calculations happened to make this strategy seem viable, and maybe it's only viable within itself. But just because something novel happened to get spit out at the end of 1 billion permutations of playing this game doesn't mean we didn't know that we programmed it to play this game.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the what and again, maybe this is not interesting, but what this novel seems to be saying is if we can't teach it, then it can't learn. And what seems to be the case in actual practice in the real world right now is that the AI can teach itself to a certain extent and get to a place that we didn't teach it. That it got to a place because
I would call that an unexpected use of, we could understand every system that we program and the way that it would mix and match those systems, and those systems would react off of one another, could be an unexpected result that we would never anticipate because we couldn't possibly test it as thoroughly as it could test itself. But we still know what all those systems were.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. You're saying that we still need to teach it the rules of chess.
Yes.
And so what the book is saying is we don't even know the rules of chess in order to teach.
Yes.
Okay. Fair point. Yes. I take your point. Well said.
Well, sideways all the way back to the book.
Anyway, I thought this whole sequence where we are we learn about the pinhole jump, we learn about all that stuff, and they're like, okay, so Rosemary, are you going to do this blind punch with us? Because like Corbin's like, I always just take the drugs and pass out. I don't want to remember it. And she's like, no, I want to experience it. Like, okay, well, it's not pleasant. It's kind of disorienting. It's weird. You lose kind of tether with 3-dimensional space. It's, strap in.
And time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we sort of get that, which is awesome. I loved, first of all, again, competency of the crew is fun to watch, where they're all locked in. They've done this 1,000 times. It's blue collar. It's work a day. It's, it's just a Tuesday, but we're doing the coolest thing ever, and also the kind of the way it's expressed that things, that there's a sequence where the same 2 lines are said back to back over and over and over again. So cool.
Love that. We also get to meet and see our sign-out pair for the first time, whose name is Ohan. Yeah. I was like, it's Ohio is what was in my brain. Ohan is, joins us on the, I guess, is it the bridge? What do we call it? The bridge, the cockpit, wherever they are. And everybody's strapping in, and cool description, cool alien body. Like, you could tell that they're like reclusive, but they're still just like, hello. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
I thought that was
all
neat.
Right, let's get the show on the road.
Cordial, professional, pleasant.
Yeah.
You know, I expected it to, you know, the pair to be very be the one that was just
very alien or
standoffish and you know, but it's still, again, we're just hanging out, we're just doing our job. This is Tuesday. It's great. So good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So good. And yeah, it's the only one that can. It's interesting to think that, you know, somebody's flying the ship. I think Sissix is the pilot, right? And it's basically navigating, and then how the writing changes through that. And
Awesome.
it is talking out loud, saying some adjustments, and it'll say things like hard left now.
Yeah.
And like Sissix just has to have learned to withstand whatever's happening and just, you know, move the steering wheel in the direction and kind of like just cling to any amount of, it's not even consciousness. It's like, it's not like they're passing out. It's just any sense of what is important in a place that is otherwise almost incomprehensible. And they get stuck almost in like a little time bubble that when the sentences are repeating, it's showing that time is meaningless and it's sort of looping back on itself. And it's like, oh, almost got stuck in that.
Well, it's
thing.
awesome.
It's like, yeah, that would be scary.
My favorite part of this is that we're in Rosemary's POV, and so she's tripping balls, right? She's you know, having this crazy experience that she's never experienced before, and they're like, oh no, and it's from the reader's perspective, at least from my perspective as reader, I was like, oh, things are going wrong. And then immediately as it's over, Ashby's like, well, that was just about perfect. Nailed it. You know, done just like we do every time. And it's like, it's fun because you're in Rosemary's POV and it just feels like things are spinning wildly out of control. But everybody's done is like, yep, that's exactly how we drew it up. You know, that's exactly what we wanted. Yeah. You know, it's really great.
And I like that Ashby or Sissix or somebody was like, the one thing that we'll say is don't mind the sound of like the punch, the boring, whatever they call the thing that allows them to do this. It's going to sound like the ship's ripping apart. That's just how it sounds.
Yeah.
But that was like the only thing that she's like, oh, I'm glad they told me that part. And then it's like, do that again, do that again, do that again, do that. That was close. So okay, like it's awesome. A very cool and well written scene to experience.
So then, you know, everybody's, you know, Rosemary throws up at the end, which is a really great button on that scene. And everybody, and, you know, Ashby's like, all right, we nailed it. All right, let's go party. We just made some money. Let's go. Everybody, you know, R&R. And so we cut to next chapter is from Sissix's point of view. She's playing chess in the fishbowl with Ashby. Everybody is sort of hungover from the previous night's partying, celebrating a job well done, which I love. That, you know, that's like we work hard, we play hard, you know, and we have this wonderful. I assume you appreciated this wonderful discussion of gaming in this future world, and what types of games, video games, and otherwise, you know, so they're actually playing literal chess here, and you know, these other species being like, man, human games are all about war and conquest. Like, how lame is that? You know, Sissix is like, our games are about cooperation and puzzle solving.
Doing a puzzle together. Yeah.
Really great. And we find out.
And then go ahead.
We find out that Dr. Chef's entire species is going extinct. The Grums are going extinct, and he's sort of like made peace with that, which I thought was interesting. And we also find out that Ashby has been obsessively watching the news reports because he's worried about Pei, P-E-I, who is his sort of, he's been coupling with her, coupling
up.
And she is kind of wrapped up in this war zone, and he's worried that her area, you know, that she will be, you know, in danger. So he's been, you know, checking in, and so it's from Sissix's point of view. So she's like you said, so empathetic, so caring, and she's like, oh, I just feel bad about him. He's watching the news so much. But what he actually sees on the news is not Pei's problem, but that a new species is joining the Galactic Commons. This is the Toremika. I'm going to say it that way. And this seems to be the thing that Yoshi was indicating, that this very standoffish, private, warlike species that's been at war with itself, the different factions of this species have been in conflict and warring, that one is now opening up and deciding to join the Galactic Commons, which will open up a huge area of mining for these very rich resources that are quite valuable to space travel. And Ashby immediately recognizes that as being a huge opportunity for somebody to make the wormhole trade routes that are going to be used for the mining companies to extract all these resources.
Yeah. It's a real Tore mi ka sola ti do. You know what I mean?
Well done. Did you have that locked and loaded, or did that just come to you?
That for some reason that was in my head all day yesterday. I was like, why am I singing that? And then I read the last bit of it. I'm like, oh yeah, this like it just hit me as soon as I read it. It was like rattling around in my mind.
I love it. Tore mi ka. Oh, that's very funny.
And this is where like all of the positioning of their ship is the right one. They can do blind punches because they have Ohan. They are the right size of ship because they're not too big to be able to do things. And the job that their pal, quote unquote, their
contact,
somebody who they seem to love to hate, their contact, gave them the drop on this, so they'll be able to write quick enough. And then the letter that comes back around for like what the gig actually is, it's like, it's a huge opportunity. They're paying for your expenses. They're paying for your travel time. Like as a gig worker of any variety, it's got like all the key phrases in it that is like, this says this is a great job and you should take it. It isn't a war zone.
Also, you have to fly all the way there and it's going to take a really long time. It's a long way to a small angry planet.
It's a long way to a small angry planet, baby. We got to hit the
ding, 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 ding,
sky
ding,
road.
So we finally kind of get the context of what this story is going to be about. They want to take this job. And I love how this plays out. Again, it changes format, as you indicated, to really seeing the actual email that comes in from, like, hey, thanks for applying for this job. We think you guys are great. We think you're perfect. We'd love to offer it to you. Think about it though, because there's some quirks. There's some quirks, but we're offering you this obscene amount of money. And then we get another format change to literally Ashby and Sizik's like text chain where they're texting back and forth in the middle of the night. And he's like, did you see the email I sent you? And she's like, what? No, I'm just sleeping. He's like, you got to read the email. And she's like, what? It was crazy. We just hit the jackpot. It's a really fun way to deliver that information to the reader, I thought.
Yeah. And another detail where she's like, I'm sleeping. I'm mad at you. I can barely move. Like I have to literally heat up first. It's like, oh yeah, she a real reptile ass reptile.
It's so true. Yeah. But they're excited about it. And then right before the chapter ends, we get this other email, which is, or sort of, format change thing, where we see that Rosemary has sort of been searching the galactic Google or whatever for this Ambi resource that is what will be opened up at Hedra, which is the home planet area of Tore mi ka. What is it, faux? Lati. I don't know. I shouldn't have tried. Anyway, so that feels like a real kind of dangling, obviously we stopped here arbitrarily, but it felt like a fun dangling cliffhanger of like, why is Rosemary searching for this? What's her agenda here? I thought that was pretty cool.
She got to clear that cash, girly.
Yeah.
Check your history. People are going to know you onto something.
So, hey, I'm into this book. I'm digging it.
I'm into
like
it.
Easy breezy read, but very fun, very delightful characters, people I want to hang out with, great sci-fi concepts. And I'm curious what hardships we're going to encounter on our journey to Hedra Ka, and what this is going to entail. But, I'm already I'm already rooting for these folks. I'm already curious about,
Mhm.
you know, what's next for them. I'm into this. This is great.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
All right.
I've got a couple favorite sections, I would say, not necessarily prose sections, but like moments that I've liked through the book so far. I actually have 4, but I forget, some of them were ones that I wanted to just pull to remind myself to talk about them.
I have just one little quote that I love. If you want me to do that real quick, and then you can do your 4.
Do it.
I love, this is when we kind of breezed over it, but at one point they watch a video, and you know, they're watching space TikTok or whatever, and it says Sizzix looks bemused. Kizzy, I told you, I'm done watching your vids. I swear, humans are the only species who can make coupling tacky. I loved that. Humans are the only species that can make coupling tacky.
I love it.
Great line.
I love also that she's just like, and maybe I'm just a pervert, but I'm like, is she like, check out this weird porn I found?
Much. She was like, this dude, look at how flexible this guy is.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Kizzy. Let's keep it work appropriate, guys. Yeah. I've got an early quote here that I like just because it felt there's a lot of things that like very immediately are so game dev, and specifically Ashby's stuff, being like a leader in any space where if you're leading a team, I feel like Ashby's going to resonate with you. This is right at the beginning, like a very little bit into the book. Ashby was in his office reading a news feed over a cup of mech when one particular sound made him cringe. Footsteps. Corbin's angry footsteps coming right toward his door. Ashby sighed, swallowed his irritation, and became the captain. He kept his face neutral, his ears open. Talking to Corbin always required a moment of preparation and a good deal of detachment.
So good. Became the captain. Love that.
It's like, because you feel like you're like, I'm just a person until I have to be the boss.
Put my hat on.
And now it's time to be the boss. Yep.
Big boy pants.
Big boy pants. The only other one that I think I'm going to pull is from Blind Punch. Yes, I like this one. So this is them talking about specifically like why an AI can't do the job. You can't do blind punches without a navigator, not legally or practically, said Dr. Chef. You need someone who can comprehend what's going on in the sublayer, someone who can visualize what's going on. An AI can't do it? Rosemary said. She knew that there were still things that technology couldn't do, but being reminded of it always surprised her. Nope, think about it, Kizzy said. AIs can't be any smarter than the people who create them. We can code in all the crazy maths and theories we want, but we can't make an AI do things that we don't understand ourselves. And not to freak you out, but we definitely don't understand the sublayer. We've got ideas about it, sure, but the only species who really gets it are the Cynet, which means the only people who could make an AI on a par with the Cynet pair are the Cynet themselves, and they sure as hell aren't going to do that. Why not? Because it's heresy, Dr. Chef said. The Cynet believe that the abilities that the Whisperer gives them are sacred gifts. They believe that since the virus doesn't affect other species aren't meant to possess those abilities. They're happy to do the work for us, but they're not going to share their understanding, not even with software. Interesting, Rosemary said. Weird, she thought. Okay, so regardless of what kind of punch you're doing, isn't it possible that you can come out not just in another place, but in another time? Absolutely, Kizzy said. That's why we do our very, very best not to fuck things up.
So good.
It's like cute knowledge drops, understanding the world, and then like, so we just don't do it bad.
Infused with character.
Like it.
That's what's so fun about it. It's doing the heavy lifting, but making it, feel very fun along the way. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. I got a really good picture of the galaxy with very little exposition dumps on me in the book.
Great stuff. So,
Enjoy
hey, again, thanks to Scott for recommending this back in 2022 and that we summarily ignored for 4 years.
So next week, chapter-wise, as we mentioned, we're kind of feeling it out. Jeff posted in the Discord that we sort of have to we're sort of reading until we hit a cliffhanger and making sure that we're not reading for like 5 hours. This was about 25% of the book. I feel like I put maybe an hour and a half's worth of reading in this week, so not super long. So if you're following along and want to get some kind of head start, read roughly another 25% of the book.
I think that's what we're going to try for. Roughly, I saw that the next chapter is much longer than any of the chapters have been thus far, so it may end up being fewer total chapters next week, but roughly 25% of the book is what we're going to shoot for. And as soon as we know, which may be pretty late in the week, we will post it on the Discord in the A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet thread. So, again, hope you're with us. Hope you're reading along. This is, again, real fun one. We appreciate you. Hey, send those emails, dlcfeedback@gmail.com for non-spoiler topics at the beginning. We've got a whole world of sci-fi concepts and ideas we can talk about in non-spoilers that have opened up now. So I think it's going to be fun. This is going to be a blast. Keep dancing.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages and start your fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends.